Alright, Ronan MMA, welcome back to the channel. Now, there has sort of been an ongoing feud that is going on between Dricus Du Plessis and Chael Sonnen, and while Chael Sonnen says some absolutely out-of-pocket things on almost a regular basis, and I understand that he is a divisive figure and that there are people that love him, there are people that hate him. I'm kind of indifferent. I think everything he says I sort of take with a grain of salt. He's very good at spinning narratives that he's going to get views on his YouTube channel for. But with that being said, Dricus Du Plessis recently went on the show of the guy that, in my opinion, was the real bad guy in the whole situation regarding Dricus Du Plessis, Israel Adesanya, the whole Africa talk, and who, in my opinion, was responsible for a large portion of the fan base actually thinking that Dricus Du Plessis is some sort of bad guy, is some sort of bigot, or whatever you want to call it. I'm trying not to say the word that everybody knows that I mean in the first minute or so, but basically Ariel Helwani did a very good job to his audience that do believe for some reason he is this like epitome of journalistic integrity. They believe that what he says is true. They take it as gospel. And it's basically because he hates Dana White. He hates Paddy Pimblett and guys like this, and a large portion of the fan base also feel that same way. So when he goes on rants about Dana White, and they think that he's the only guy that's going to talk about this, and that he's all like they need to, bow down, and oh my god, he's actually talking about Dana White. No other journalist will do this. That's about the only credit you could ever give him. He basically painted Dricus Du Plessis as a racist to his entire fan base. And I know that a lot of my audience will remember this because a lot of my audience is not dumb and they don't have a short-term memory, and they know that Ariel Helwani is a snake, a weasel, a rat, whichever you want to call him. He's about as sly as a fox, okay? He is the real bad guy in the Dricus Du Plessis situation, okay? Now, I'm going to go over the timeline a little bit, but I just want everybody to remember who was the one painting Dricus Du Plessis to be the bad guy, who was the one that dragged his name through the mud simply for views while pretending he hated the subject matter, pretending he hated that this storyline existed. He continuously spoke about it, okay? I'm going to go over the timeline a little bit. So Chael Sonnen has done a ton of videos on Dricus Du Plessis in the last month. Now, something that Chael Sonnen is very good at is he will figure out which guys are going to get him a lot of views. Now, Dricus Du Plessis, he's absolutely undeniable. On YouTube, he will get a ton of views. Sean Strickland, undeniable. He will get a ton of views. Chael Sonnen kind of waits until everybody else has stopped talking about them. So post UFC 290, everybody was talking about Dricus Du Plessis for about a week. And then it kind of died down. And then Chael Sonnen ramps it the fuck up when it comes to his Dricus Du Plessis videos. In the last month, I don't even know how many, maybe 10 videos on Dricus Du Plessis, and that might even be an understatement. Now, in my opinion, I know, again, as I said, Chael Sonnen's a divisive figure. Some people can't stand him, some people love him. But in my opinion, when he's doing this, when he's saying bad things about fighters, he is keeping them relevant. And I think that he's doing that somewhat on purpose. Now, the press that he's giving them may be negative, but it also creates drama in his own comment section, and then it creates debates on YouTube, and then other people will make videos responding to Chael Sonnen, making that fighter trend when they might not have been otherwise, okay? He did this with the Francis Ngannou situation. He was posting videos on Francis Ngannou every day, whereas the vast majority of people that make videos on YouTube were kind of waiting for a more larger update, a more significant update in the whole situation regarding him negotiating his boxing match, where he was going to go next. Chael Sonnen might have been the only person keeping him relevant on YouTube, and 100% a company that is looking to sign Francis Ngannou to do any business with him is going to be taking a look at how he's trending on social medias and things like that. So if Chael Sonnen is keeping his name in circulation nonstop on YouTube and things like that, it will fare well for Francis Ngannou. Like, he may be saying bad shit about him, but the old trope, bad or any press is good press or whatever the fuck. Do you know what I mean? Not necessarily with Dricus Du Plessis, though, in the Ariel Helwani situation. So, Chael Sonnen, after UFC 290, a good while after UFC 290, once the Dricus Du Plessis talk had died down, accused him essentially of being scared of Israel Adesanya and that he faked an injury. This is the
Stephen A. Smith will say, sometimes the lights get too bright. And there was a moment in that face-off when Du Plessis turns around and Izzy was standing there. There was a moment when the lights got too bright. That's not a problem. And I don't tease Du Plessis for saying that. The fact that Du Plessis got scared, by the way, like that's one thing the fighters always said, I wasn't scared. It's like playground rules and you can't say it. It's a good thing that you can get scared, otherwise you're a sociopath. The fool I'm going to look like. I mean, like there's certain body parts, if you're going to work the I'm hurt scam, as ridiculous as it sounds that the dog ate my homework, somewhere in the world, the dog is eating the homework. But it's a really hard one to pull if you don't have a dog at home. Are you with me? So of all the body parts that are going to be hurt, of all the mystery body parts, to say it's your foot when you just fought and then you walked out of the cage, you walked into the press conference. You got up and walked out of the press conference. Like there's certain you can't go with my foot. You gotta go with the random.
This is the main part of. This is the main storyline that is coming out of the Chael Sonnen. Now, there's been some other things said back and forth and things like that, but that's essentially the gist of it. He's claiming that he's scared and that he's faking an injury and that he should have picked a different body part to fake because we watched him walk out of the cage after UFC 290. And while that is absolutely stupid of Chael Sonnen to say, obviously, okay, it created a bit of a shitstorm that we've got Dricus Du Plessis responding to him. We've got other YouTubers responding to Chael Sonnen. And all of a sudden, when Dricus Du Plessis was not all that relevant, at the time, his name's being circulated in and out through YouTube. His name's probably trending if you were to hashtag it. Like, he's keeping him relevant, keeping him in the headlines, keeping him circulating on YouTube. Dricus Du Plessis went on Ariel Helwani show to talk about this.
So yeah, it was basically a done deal. But I said it even at the press. I said if I'm medically able to, that's the fight I'm going to take it. Chael Sonnen said something stupid or ridiculous like Dricus wasn't even limping when he was walking out the cage. What a dumb thing to say. With all that adrenaline in your body, you just knocked out Whittaker, just faced off with Dricus Adesanya. You think I'm going to walk with a limp? I don't know what kind of man you are, but I'll fake that limp every day.
In your defense, Chael does say a lot of stupid things. So I didn't hear him say that, but not surprised. He has said stupid things, even about me. So I can understand where you're.
I can't blame him too.
I appreciate that. Well played. Well played.
Or, it got brought up, at least. It wasn't the topic of discussion, but it did get brought up. And Ariel Helwani, in true snake, fox, weasel, rat fashion, pretended as though he has never said a bad thing about Dricus Du Plessis. And Dricus Du Plessis is too much of a fucking gentleman, and I'm not saying that to be disparaging. He's just too gentlemanly to call out Ariel Helwani on his bullshit, so I just want to remind everybody what a piece of shit he is, okay? He said that Chael Sonnen said something absolutely stupid, defended his, the injury, said that of adrenaline, I just knocked out Robert Whittaker, and I just had a face-off with the champion. If you think I'm going to let him know that I'm injured, you're out of your mind. Out of your mind, I'm going to fake the non-limp, essentially, every day of the week. I'm not going to walk out of the cage acting like I'm injured after I just had a face-off with the champion, and that is a fair point. And then Ariel Helwani goes on to say, well, yeah, Chael Sonnen says a lot of stupid shit, and he says, he says stupid things about me also, because Chael Sonnen told Ariel Helwani, or at least said it in a video, that he wasn't much of a man, which I tend to agree with. Dricus Du Plessis gave the tiniest little shot. He said, well, I can't blame Chael either. And while that was subtle and, well done and well placed, and the timing was good, Ariel Helwani he kind of picked up on it a second later. It was slightly delayed in his brain. He got away with murder there. Metaphorically speaking, obviously. He didn't murder anybody, but he was the real bad guy in the Dricus Du Plessis situation. He was the one dragging his name through the mud. And as I said, I want to remind all of you, so I have brought clips and the timeline. Now, after Dricus Du Plessis had said that I want to be the first African champion to bring my belts home to Africa, and not for a quick little visit, the gym is in Africa. The belt would stay in Africa. It would be in Africa. It would not go to a different country. That's what he meant. We all know that, right? Dricus Du Plessis is not a fucking racist. He was just stating facts, right? Now, Ariel Helwani, after this, brought him on for an interview after Israel Adesanya had knocked out Alex Pereira back in April.
And I think this is what sparked all of it. Quote, did those belts ever go to Africa? As far as I know, they came to America and New Zealand. I'm going to take a belt to Africa. I'm the African fighter in the UFC. Myself and Cameron, we breathe African air. We wake up in Africa every day. We train in Africa. We're African born. We're African raised. We still reside in Africa. We train out of Africa. That's an African champion, and that's who I'll be. End quote. You said this at the UFC 285 media day, and it seemed like the first one that was up was Kamaru Usman, and he took issue with your comments. Do you understand why this may have rubbed some people, including Kamaru and Israel, who we'll get to in a moment, the wrong way, given the history between whites and blacks in Africa? My question is, why does this matter so much to you, Dricus? Like, there's someone who's from Canada and they live in the U.S., or someone who's from Germany and lives in Sweden. Like, why? And that goes back to, I think, some of the blowback that you may have received for these comments is because of the history, right? There is a deep history. You're a white man, he's a black man, and it feels like a lot of my Africa, and you go to your home in New Zealand. And that's what I think is making some people uncomfortable. Why is this such?
I would imagine Dricus Du Plessis had no idea that this topic would even be brought up because, like many of us thought, he probably thought that it was not a big deal. I didn't say anything fucked up or out of pocket. It was just true. But that's not what happened. Ariel Helwani brought him on to probably what was Dricus thought, talk about the knockout, talk about who might be next for Adesanya, talk about the landscape of the middleweight division, talk about his win over Derek Brunson, all of this good stuff. And he essentially got bombarded, ambushed, whichever way you want to put it, with questions regarding this whole Africa situation. And I just don't think that he was ready for it. And Ariel Helwani continued to push the race narrative. There were even moments where Dricus Du Plessis tried to say, I don't understand why color is being brought into it. Well, Ariel Helwani was the one bringing color into it. He was. He, aside from Israel Adesanya himself, but in terms of the media, was the biggest mainstream pusher of this race narrative. He continued to talk about the history of blacks and whites in South Africa as if Israel Adesanya, Kamaru Usman, or Francis Ngannou were fucking from South Africa. Which they're not, okay, by the way, in case any of you didn't know that. Continuously brought it up. When Dricus Du Plessis gave his answer the best that he could, now it then started getting a little bit defensive. Ariel Helwani brought it up again, brought the race part up again, okay. He does a show after the fact pretending how he can't stand this subject matter. He wishes that this wasn't the storyline. It's just, I really hope that this stops. And then does an entire video on it, breaking down the timeline regarding what was said and what was done, and essentially refuses to levy any criticism at a guy like Kamaru Usman, essentially saying that Dricus Du Plessis is not African just because he was born there, raised there, lives there, but because his ancestors are not African, okay? Won't levy any criticism his way. Won't levy any criticism in the direction of Israel Adesanya for blurting out racial slurs on a regular basis. Won't levy any criticisms at anybody. Maybe just you guys are a little oversensitive. Maybe he struck a nerve. Maybe we should stop talking about race. Maybe he did just mean nationality. But he continuously brought up the race matter, did an entire video on it while pretending he hates talking about it to make money, to get views. And that's all fine, but don't pretend like you hate talking about it when you consistently talk about it on a regular basis, okay? And then Ariel Helwani does a interview with Israel Adesanya.
And there's a story there. I personally, this is me, I didn't love some of the things that were being said by him and his team. And so I had,
What did they say?
we'll find out who the real African is and all that stuff.
Okay, I'll say this again. I never questioned his ethnicity. I never said he's not African, even though colonization, we don't want to go over there and all that stuff.
Yes.
He is an African, so he was born in South Africa. And I never questioned that. But the fact that he was being a dickhead and, who the real African is, I breathe African air, all that kind of stuff. I'm like, how the fuck are you going to question me, Francis, and Kamaru's blackness, our Africanness? Like, who the fuck are you? So I had to put that out there and just, I want to educate him.
So
Look,
he said it first.
I'll tell you one thing.
Yeah.
You ever heard of ancestry in me?
Of course.
If you do ancestry in me on me, I know where the fuck I'm from. If you do it on him, he'll find out where the fuck he's from. And I'll tell you, it won't say South Africa. I'll tell you that. It won't say South Africa if you do ancestry in me or whatever thing, because he'll tell you where the fuck he's from. He'll know his real heritage. I know where the fuck I am, and I stand on that. No matter where in the world I am, you can take the word Africa, but you can never take Africa out of the man. So I know that, and I never questioned him as an African. So who the fuck is he to question me as an African? I'm going to manifest him winning this fight in the first round, and when he does, I'm going to be right there in the cage so he can turn around in September. No bullshit, no, I'm hurt, this and that. Nope, we're going to fight in Sydney in September. It's Rob, whatever, but I already got a plan for Rob if it's Rob. But I really, wallahi, Allah, hope it's DDP, because I will show him who the fuck I am.
There's a different type of energy that comes out of you when you talk about him. I saw the video.
I just felt it now.
Yeah, I saw the video with your brother, and you were calling him some names too, and then people are like, which, listen, I'm not going to get into all that.
Nah, but it's funny. I don't care.
But
I call him a nigga too. He's a bitch.
So my thing was,
in this, they bring it up again because he hates talking about it so much. And keep in mind, this is like 2 months after the Dricus Du Plessis interview. This is like 3 months after Dricus Du Plessis fought Derek Brunson. But they have to bring it up, okay? And he talks to Israel Adesanya about it. He says that he didn't like all the things that his coach said and blah, 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 blah. Ariel Helwani essentially the entire time is blaming Dricus Du Plessis' coach for this situation, even though, while he may have said some unhinged shit, it was not started by him. It was a response to Kamaru Usman saying that Dricus Du Plessis was not really African, basically. He didn't say that word for word and verbatim, but considering everybody likes to take Dricus Du Plessis' quotes and say and attribute meaning to them when he didn't mean that, I'll do it for Kamaru Usman, okay? He basically said Dricus Du Plessis was not African, And then we have his coach calling him out on Twitter and saying whatever he said that Ariel Helwani had a serious problem with. He sits there while Israel Adesanya brings up the race part, says, "Who are you to question my blackness?" towards Dricus Du Plessis, even though he never fucking did that. Never once brought color into it, okay? And then he egging it on, dude. Ariel Helwani was egging on this entire situation. And like I said early in the video, his fan base, his regular viewership, agree with a lot of what he says. They take his word at gospel. Even the things that they don't like hearing from him, they think that Ariel Helwani's just being honest and truthful, and he doesn't care what you don't want to hear. He's just going to tell you the truth. So he's got a large chunk of his fan base now thinking Dricus Du Plessis is a racist, and they can continuously talk about it, and every time they talk about it, he's critical of his coach, of Dricus Du Plessis. He allows Israel Adesanya to call him a cracker again, calls him the N-word, calls him all these fucking names, while Ariel Helwani sits there laughing, okay? Just allowing the narrative to be painted. Zero pushback whatsoever, because he loves Israel Adesanya. Gets him a lot of views. He wants him to continue to come on his show. He will never criticize Israel Adesanya. He's been making excuses for him ever since the Sean Strickland fight. His co-hosts don't like Sean Strickland. They've been also making excuses for Israel Adesanya, so he's just a fucking bitch when it comes to that shit. And he just allowed Israel Adesanya to essentially drag his name through the mud after he's done multiple shows, multiple videos, probably fucking multiple hours talking about Dricus Du Plessis and essentially painting him as a racist piece of shit. Now, at the very least, a race baiter, okay? I just want to remind everybody, while Chael Sonnen may have been out of pocket talking about the fake injury, talking about him being scared, and how he's not going to be relevant and all this shit, and you know what? It kind of ended up being true because, in a sense, because Dricus Du Plessis is kind of, unless the UFC listens to the pushback that the fans are giving, he might not be next for a title shot, even though he is the true number one contender, the African King, Dricus Du Plessis. But, Sean Strickland was not supposed to beat Israel Adesanya. Israel Adesanya was supposed to go out there and beat Sean Strickland, and then they were going to make Du Plessis and Adesanya. But now that Strickland went out there and fucking beat the shit out of Israel Adesanya, we may be waiting a bit to find out what happens. Dricus Du Plessis might not be the next one to fight for a title, even though he absolutely fucking should be, and I want him to be, okay? Chael ended up kind of being right about that. You just don't know what's going to happen, right? But I don't want a guy who's injured to turn around on 2 months and have to fight the champion. I think that's bullshit. And that's what Israel Adesanya was trying to do, and he got the ultimate karma for it, dude. Because he ended up getting short notice Strickland. Short notice Deshaun Strickland, okay? The only person that called out Ariel Helwani, or at least the only mainstream person, the only person with big push behind him, the only guy that, sits on ESPN from time to time, the only guy, as I said, mainstream, that's the best way to put it. The only guy that called him out, because every single other media outlet was spewing the same bullshit about Dricus Du Plessis. They were, everybody, colonizer, all this shit, as if he was fucking alive in the early 1900s. Do you know what I mean? Or even before that, dude. His ancestors have been there forever. I stop pretending like this guy moved there in the year fucking 2000 and he himself rode down South Africans on horseback and fucking took over their town or some shit. Enough with that, okay? The only mainstream guy to call him out on it, the only mainstream guy to disagree with him and offer a different viewpoint, to offer a different way to look at things, even bringing himself into it, saying, well, actually, I did this to people and nobody really cared about it, was Chael Sonnen.
That's interesting. I mean, I don't know where that sits. I will tell you, as personal as I could get on that from just my own experiences, I tried to do that to some guys. I tried to do that when I was fighting Anderson Silva. I tried to tell the world he's not Brazilian. He lives in Beverly Hills. I tried to do that when I was fighting Vanderlei Silva. He doesn't live in Brazil. He moved out to Las Vegas years ago. I got nowhere with it. I got ground nowhere. Nobody saw it that way. I get Du Plessis' point fully. If I was claiming to be the Oregon champion, the Westland champion, and somebody else tried to make that claim that moved away and was somewhere else, and I'd be saying the same thing. I mean, I really do think that Du Plessis makes a very fair point. Now, that's different, though. That's a very different point than Adesanya coming in and making about skin color. That's where it starts to go, whoa. I'll sit back. Du Plessis in his defense made a very different point than the point that Izzy made in that cage, at least by my ears. But no, I can't agree with you. No, he struck a nerve. He knew that he would. Look, I mean, he makes it. Guys move away. I don't know. I feel that. I feel that when a guy packs up and moves away and then tries to make a claim somewhere else. I feel it too. What are you doing? What are you doing? You're a man without a country. If you went over there, then represent them. If you're living there, how are they going to be proud of you? And that's where you are. I don't personally understand it. It sounds like you do. So I don't know. Maybe somebody gets split down the middle there.
Yeah.
But I think Du Plessis' point, I think it's very fair if a guy moves away.
I guess I understand it on the other.
And in my opinion, this whole narrative about Dricus that Ariel and Israel Adesanya did a very good job at painting up for their fan base. I think that's a lot worse for Dricus Du Plessis' image overall in the general public than Chael Sonnen saying he faked an injury or he is scared of Israel Adesanya, because Chael Sonnen's points about him, there's no evidence, right? It's just him talking shit. It's an opinion piece, essentially. Whereas we all saw the things Dricus said. We all saw the things that were said by Israel Adesanya. We all saw the things that were said by Kamaru Usman. There's actually, like, basically witness testimony. Do you know what I mean? That Ariel Helwani can use to paint a narrative the way that, like, a prosecutor or a defense lawyer might. So Chael's, you know, a lot of people in the comment sections are like, shut up, dude. Do you know what I mean? No, he's not. He's not faking an injury. He's not scared. Now, Israel Adesanya fans will agree with that wholeheartedly, unironically. But Ariel Helwani had shit that could back up his narrative. It's just a matter of how you spin it. And in my opinion, that was a lot worse for Dricus Du Plessis' image than what Chael Sonnen has said by tenfold. And I would imagine that there's a lot of Dricus Du Plessis fans that are annoyed and irritated by Chael Sonnen. And I don't fucking blame you, right? But again, I just want to remind everybody who the real piece of shit is, okay? And that's Ariel the Rat Helwani. And I'm talking about the Dricus Du Plessis situation. Chael Sonnen might have transgressions that have gone on that make him not the best person also, right? But in terms of this situation, Ariel Helwani's the piece of shit. Ariel Helwani's the bad guy. Ariel Helwani is the one who drug fucking Dricus Du Plessis' name through the mud, painting him as at least a race baiter, but a racist, and, you know, all this shit to his fan base that are not all there in the head. And I don't mean if you watch Ariel Helwani from time to time that you're an idiot, but I mean the people that, as I said earlier, take his word as gospel, think that everything he says is honest and true because he's actually willing to criticize Dana White, even though half the time he's criticizing him, it's for some petty bitch shit that nobody really cares about anyways. Do you know what I mean? Even though he sucks the dick of Scott Coker and fucking Chaudhry, whatever his last name is, dude. I can't say it, but it is what it is, dude. Ariel Helwani will pretend to be your friend to your face, even though he has shat on you, made you look like shit, not just behind your back, but right in front of you, in an interview, to his entire fan base. He will pretend like none of this ever happened, or that it's water under the bridge, or no problem, because he wants you back on his fucking show. Right? Chael Sonnen doesn't have the same model as he does. Chael Sonnen doesn't need guys for interviews. Ariel Helwani does. If he didn't have guys coming on for interviews, I don't think half the people that would watch his show would watch it. So, he acts like a snake. He'll, you know, as I said, drag your name through the fucking mud for months on end. But then when it benefits him to have you on to talk about what just went on last weekend or whatever, he'll pretend like he never said any of that. None of that ever happened. All good. We're buddy-buddy. And yeah, you're right. Chael Sonnen says a lot of stupid shit. Hey, don't worry about it. Fuck you, Ariel Helwani. Just reminder. He's a rat, snake, weasel, fox. Chael Sonnen says dumb shit. Abso-fucking-lutely. He has bad takes on a regular basis. But the real, true bad guy to Dricus Du Plessis was Ariel Helwani. He's just too much of a gentleman to call him out to his face, and I appreciate that from a guy. Dude, Dricus Du Plessis is the ultimate gentleman. He is so polite. He's very well spoken. He's intelligent. You can tell by the way that he speaks. And, you know, I can appreciate him not wanting to stir up conflict and drama while he's right there in front of Ariel Helwani, because it would just be awkward, and then whatever. But I'll do it for him, dude, because I'm not a fucking gentleman, okay? So, Ariel Helwani's a snake, a rat, a weasel, a fox, a bitch. And Chael Sonnen may say some out-of-pocket shit, but he has been keeping Dricus Du Plessis relevant this entire fucking time. Just a reminder, like and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. I'll see you at the next video. Bye-bye.